Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jeff Trevarthen, Jeff the Mortgage Pro. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is our first ever version of the Homebuyer Success Podcast, where we talk about what's the best strategies out there for the buyers in today's real estate market. It's a tough market out there for just about everybody, and we want to try to uncover some different things. So, what we decided to do with this podcast is reach out to real estate agents all across the country, do an interview with them, and really get some in depth ideas about how they're succeeding in today's market, how they're getting their buyers into contract, and how they're getting their sellers to sell their properties for the highest prices possible. So, we want to give some tips and advice out there. And today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by my good friend, Kirsten Reilly. Kirsten and I have worked together on several transactions. She's a local agent here in the Silicon Valley in San Jose, California. So, Kirsten, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Jeff. I am so excited to be your very first. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we'll find out, I suppose. But yeah, thank you so much for the invitation to chat with you today about the market. It's always changing. I've learned over the years that it's not a good market. It's not a bad market. It's just different, and there's ways to be successful in every single scenario. So yeah. And
Awesome.
then you wanted to know a little bit about me and my background. Is that
Yeah, where did you come from? Was real estate was your first career or no?
real estate wasn't my first career, but it started so long ago that it kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
I started out in high tech, working in human resources for a few years right out of college, and did a little bit of what's called instructional design, which is creating training solutions for software companies. It was a lot of technical writing and a lot of desk work. And so when the dot-com bubble burst, that's right around when I got into real estate in the early 2000s. And
Yep.
I'm super glad I did, because now it's been 20 years and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think you're just like me in the sense that we're both transplants to the Bay Area. I grew up in Washington State, and I believe you're from
No,
Arizona. Is that right?
I'm
Oh,
is it fourth or fifth generation Californian?
oh, never
Yeah.
mind.
But I went to school in Ohio. Maybe that's what you're
That's
thinking
right. That's right. That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
of.
So tell us a little bit about what do your numbers look like, maybe from 2022 and then kind of year to date this year, in terms of like how many units you did last year on the buy side and the sell side, and then also just an estimate of how much production you did.
Yeah, so I don't have my numbers up in front of me for last year, but it's about double this year from what it was last year.
Wow.
But last year, had some personal challenges, and so in real estate, you are your own boss, right? You're an entrepreneur, just like you are with mortgage, and so uh, you know, you can gear up or pull back depending on what you have going on in life. And so last year was a little bit slower. This year, I'm on my 22nd sale so
Wow.
far, and I have about five in the pipeline. Um, I'm
Amazing.
heavily on the listing side this year, which is really nice. And this is kind of a normal evolution of realtors, I think, is, when you're young in the business, you not necessarily young age wise, but when you're new in the business, you start out working with a lot of buyers. Because one of the ways we pick up clients is through open houses. And so you're meeting unrepresented buyers. And then as your book of business grows and your past client list grows, you start getting more referrals for listings. And now at this point in my career, it's out of those 22, I think six are buyer sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. So in terms of like the numbers, like what would you say you're at volume wise right now?
Volume wise, I'm at about 33 million.
Okay.
And my average sale price is around 1.5 million, which is normal for the Bay Area. I know
Yes.
it sounds, I talk to my friends that are realtors in other parts of the US, and they'll sell, 100, 120 houses a year.
Yeah.
And so we have the benefit here in the Bay Area of, um, you know, having the higher sales prices, but it's so hyper competitive here. You really have to fight for
Yeah.
every client.
Yeah, and to those listeners out there, to put that into perspective in terms of volume, 33 million is a top producer in my mind. Anybody that does above 10 million across the country is doing really, really well for themselves. So, Kirsten, that's a kudos to you and your team on the
Yeah, and I
Kirsten Reilly
couldn't
team
do
out
it without my husband, Seth. So thank
there.
gosh for him because he helps, especially with all the listings. We do a lot
Yeah.
of prep work to get a house ready. And it's kind of like the iceberg principle where you see the sign go up in the yard and it sells in a week. And so the perception is it's so easy, but what you're not seeing is all the work that goes into it before
Yep.
even putting the sign in the yard. And Seth helps tremendously with all of that stuff. Everything from coordinating with vendors to ordering photography, everything in between.
Yeah, systems and processes of anybody that I've ever worked with, I think that you and Seth are by far the best organized business people that I've ever met in real estate. So
Oh,
that's a
wow.
kudos to you guys. I always, my perception is that you guys are super organized and you do such a great job with, presentations and staging and all those things that you guys do with your listings. It seems like a
Yeah, we
seamless
enjoy
process.
that
But
part.
yeah, so let's ask a couple questions about some of the buyers you have. So I've got a list of questions here. Let's just answer them as we go here. But
hmm
what are some of the key factors you consider when you're matching a buyer with their ideal property?
Um, I just recognize that every buyer is very, very unique in what they're looking for, and you just have to be a good listener. I think as a realtor and a broker, you just have to listen and ask a lot of questions and understand that a buyer's idea of what they want um, may evolve as
Yes.
over time as you start looking around. You may have an initial consultation with someone and they say this is exactly what I want, and they're very succinct and they've got their list ready for you, and you know and then eventually you get the text message, hey, can we go see this property? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait a second, different school district, different floor plan. What's happening? And so, things change and evolve, and you just have to be ready for it. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially in this like low inventory market that we have right now,
Yes.
I'm sure
Yes.
that you have trouble when buyers, give you their ideal home. It's like, that hasn't existed for 10 years. So we'll have to try to get you something close, but we'll do the
Yeah.
best that we
Price
can to
wise.
find what we're looking
It
for.
brings up an interesting point, and I think one of the key things that a buyer's agent can do to help their client, especially at the very, very beginning, and especially in a market where prices are appreciating, is to not only show a list of the houses that are available, but let's look at a list of the most recent sales that actually closed escrow, where you can see the sales price that fell into that budget of what they're looking for, because
Yeah.
that really helps them acclimate. I don't know about other areas of the US right now, but I know certain neighborhoods here in the Silicon Valley, houses are still selling way over the list price. And so it can be misleading to look at list prices and as a brand new home buyer and try to set expectations that way. It's much better to calibrate off of what's recently sold.
That's a great idea. I just picked something up right there when you were talking about that. I never even thought about that way
Yeah.
on how to calibrate that, because you're right. People do jump into the market and they think that this purchase price is going to give them this exact house, and in reality, that's not always how it works.
hmm
So,
Yeah. And
what a great tip there.
sometimes what I'll do is they'll say, okay, out of those houses that just sold, we would have liked the following five. And so I'll grab those and put them into a sheet and show them what were they listed at and then what did they sell for. And that really helps you target, when you're shopping, what price point you should be looking at.
Yeah, yeah, it's super important right now, especially with appreciation the way that it's been over the last couple of years and the lack of inventory. Again,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Share with me like a success story where you like successfully negotiated a deal that like exceeded your buyer's expectations.
Let's see
That's a
here.
tricky one.
Well, yeah, no, do you want an example for a buyer? Is that more interesting? Probably, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, just recently, I helped a buyer get into escrow on a property in Boulder Creek.
Okay.
And, it's tricky. Up in that is for those of you who don't know, Boulder Creek is an area in the Los Gatos Mountains. So it's a little bit in the more rural areas surrounding the Silicon Valley. And there are not a lot of data points out there to easily understand what the sales price is going to be or what it should be, what your offer price should be. All we knew is the general stats about the property and seeing the property. And then we knew a few houses nearby, but some of them had acreage, some of them didn't, some of them were nicer, not as nice 4 months back, you know? So it was really tricky to look at the data together, but we knew that there was competition on the property. And so it was a situation where I really had to cozy up to the listing agent and get her comfortable with me as a professional, ask the right questions, express the motivation of the client. And then when we made an offer, the success story was that we actually beat out an offer that came in slightly higher that was all cash. And I think that I don't know by how much because she hasn't disclosed it, but I do know that that our competitor was a little bit higher. But because of the way I positioned the buyer to her and to her seller and positioned myself as a professional, I guess that was the tipping point for them. So,
That brings up a good thing that I wanted to mention. I was thinking about that earlier this morning. It was like, you know, like it doesn't matter if it's an all cash deal that you're competing against because
mhm.
sometimes if you're the higher price, like money is money. It's still going to be, a little bit more competitive even if you're getting a loan on a property versus an all cash type of
Yeah.
a purchase. And then
And
obviously it depends on the scenario and the situation, but
it does.
um,
It does. I mean, sometimes you throw up your hands and you're like, well, I can't compete with an all cash offer. Of course they took it. And just so that people understand, the reason why a seller is interested in all cash is because they're looking at risk assessment of the offers. So they might have 3 or 4 offers that they're looking at, and they might all be the same price. But if one is all cash, that means there's no appraisal and there's no complicated underwriting. Sorry,
no, and I totally
but
agree with you.
so their agent is talking to them about how easy the escrow is going to be, and if closing quickly is attractive to that seller, that's an advantage that an all cash offer can bring as well. Because I think with the underwriting, you're limited to, I don't know, 21 to 25 days is kind of making it tight.
Yeah, we're doing stuff faster, but does anybody want to close on a house where you have to get an appraisal? That's tough in 5 days. I don't know. I mean, for me, that would be a little bit too fast. I would prefer like 3 weeks to, make sure that
Exactly.
I'm doing the right thing, right?
Hmm.
But we're closing stuff in anywhere from 10 to 15 days.
Wow,
So
that's
especially,
incredible.
yeah, but I mean, it depends on the transaction. It has to be
Hmm.
a good client, a good borrower, and they have to be organized in their documentation, and we have to get the appraiser out there fast. And if all those things are lined up, then closing fast is not an issue for any buyer anywhere in the country. But if there's issues with the property, or if it's in a different type of area where there might not be any comps and things are going to take a little bit longer, it's a different type of loan, like a VA loan, where they have certain restrictions on time for appraisals. All
Hmm.
those things can factor in on how fast you close. So I always try to judge it
Solar,
based on
if
that.
there's a solar
Solar,
transfer.
yeah, solar's solar's a big one, especially out here in California. That's one of the things that we're always dealing with, and
Hmm.
not an
Hmm.
easy thing to deal with, especially on the lending side of stuff as well. So another thing that you mentioned there is that you are help these buyers up in the rural, kind of a rural area, I would say, of Boulder Creek, and that kind of got me thinking about insurance. Have
Hmm.
you had issues with homeowners insurance lately with any of the buyers up there? It seems like everybody in California is panicking because insurance costs are going through the roof in those types of areas.
Hmm.
I know Florida, with the hurricanes and the storms that they have,
Yeah.
are having trouble getting insurance on properties. So do you
Mhm,
see that trend
mhm.
out there for that?
I try to get ahead of it as much as I can. So when I'm representing a seller, we actually this year advised a couple of our sellers to replace their roofs prior to putting the house on the market, just because they were old wood shake roofs, and we knew that it could be problematic.
Yeah.
So we tried to get ahead of it a little bit. I had a situation where one of my buyers was making no, no, no. This was a listing, and the buyer that was in escrow on the property, the insurance wanted to know how old the roof was, and I told them our understanding based on the roof inspection is that it's 15 years old. And they said, oh, well, we want to see the roof inspection. And I thought, this is a first. I've never had an insurance company ask to see the source of information for the age of a roof before. And so then it set off a whole new set of panic for me, because I was like, well, what about all the checklist items that they're
Yeah.
saying that are recommended, for this roof? Are they going to require it? Well, they didn't. We got through it, but that was just a little heart palpitation for me. Um, but yeah, we haven't had any escrows blow up because of uninsurability. And knock on wood, we won't. But it's a
Well,
moving target, I think.
right, it is a moving target, and here we are recording this at the end of August, and of course, there's fires all across the West Coast right now,
I
and hurricanes in Florida, in the East Coast. So it's
know.
kind of one of those times of the year that's kind of makes you thinking about insurance a little bit, right?
Hmm.
What are some essential tips that you would have for first-time home buyers to navigate the purchase process smoothly?
Well, I think you want to find a realtor that you enjoy working with, because it might take a little while if it's a competitive market.
Yeah.
Someone that you trust, someone who has experience, and someone who has time to devote to you. Um, there's a, Depending on the situation and where you are in the country, some areas like ours, you get a lot of disclosures and reports up front. So being able to sort of quickly look through those and get acclimated and comfortable with a property prior to making an offer, that's something that you have to get used to and get comfortable with. Um, if you work in other parts of the United States where you're going to be doing inspections during escrow, understanding that process and knowing that you're working with an agent that can help you go through that and answer the questions that need answering and help you negotiate repairs and credits, that is going to be important. So I think aligning with a good professional, and then understanding that, I guess, the expectation that you're not going to find your perfect house, because when you go out looking at houses, you are looking at someone else's interpretation of their dream home. It's their dream home.
Yep.
You still need to make it yours. So it might not have the perfect kitchen, it might not have the perfect flooring. It's okay. Focus on the things that can't be changed. Focus on location, obviously. Focus on natural light, things like floor plan, school districts. These are all things that are really tricky to change if they're not right. So I would say if you can get those things lined up with what you want, all the cosmetic things can come later, over time. So I think that would be my two big ones.
No, that's great. I I would add. Well, I also like your tip about trust. You have to absolutely work with someone that you trust,
Hmm.
um, and I would trust people to work with you, obviously. And one of the things is that you have to really prepare your buyers, to the point where they have to understand what expectations are. Like, sometimes we forget. What I'm saying is sometimes we forget that we do this every single day,
Hmm.
and these buyers, this might be the first and maybe even the only time they ever do that in their life when they're a first time home buyer. Right? They may never move, but
Hmm.
most likely they will move in the future. But this is a brand new experience for them. So they have to also understand that you're an expert at what you're doing. You do this every single day. You look at hundreds of homes per year, you know, and from the listing perspective, coming from your side of stuff, what would you say about how offers come in, you know, from agents? I'd love to hear what your perspective is from the listing side of that too.
It's wild, Jeff, actually, to be a listing agent here in the San Jose area. And I think all of my fellow agent friends would agree that it kind of is mind blowing to see the
Yeah.
offers and how aggressive buyers are when they come in making offers on these properties. We have people submit offers through an app that allows us to see them side by side, all lined up, sorted by offer price,
Wow.
and then all of the terms and conditions underneath, side by side. And across the board, people are removing contingencies, which I would love to get your take on the removal of a finance contingency and how to get comfortable with that. But people are removing contingencies, trying to shorten up escrow periods, offering to get their earnest money in within 1 day, not three, because three is what's written into the contract and they'll always change it to one. Um, Prices that I can't anticipate,
Yeah.
I mean, I try to set my sellers' expectations, and I don't want to set them up for disappointment, but at the same time, I usually will guess, where do I think this is going to go? And I'm always wrong. It's insane what people are willing to do. And maybe it's
Yeah.
the competitive environment, maybe it's like I got to do it now or never kind of a mentality. I don't know. But it's pretty spectacular what happens.
I'm always blown away, especially in our market here. It's just like, wow, it went
Mhm.
for 500,000 over the asking price. Like, who does that?
It is so challenging to be a buyer's agent right now. Those guys are worth every penny, because
Yeah,
the good ones, because it's just like having to work with your buyer to get comfortable with all these things in a way that limits their risk at the same time. It's an art form, truly. I
yeah,
mean, to go through, well, how do I get comfortable removing my appraisal contingency? What happens if it appraises low? Finance contingency. Let's review all of the property documents, and do we feel comfortable with this? And what is this going to cost you? And that, I mean, it's endless. It's so much work. And then to get rejected, and then try again and get rejected and try again, and to keep your buyers motivated to keep trying. I mean, that's hard. It's
yeah,
really, really challenging.
yeah. In terms of the finance contingency,
Mhm.
I that makes me nervous just hearing that word
I
when they
know it.
remove their finance contingency. They just like, I mean, I get where they're coming from and I get why they have to do it.
Mhm.
To me, I would prefer to see a file or a buyer that's been fully underwritten first, right? Has had an
Yes.
underwriter look at their loan, says, yes, you're going to be able to get a loan. Here's a couple of the conditions that we're going to need to meet in order to do that. And some buyers are, more than clean to be able to do, remove their finance contingency and go forth and buy their property. I would prefer them to be at that point. But some people like, just having me look at it, they want to remove their finance contingency. And I'm like, I'm just a loan officer. Like I know the guidelines, but I'm not an underwriter. And I'm not the one that makes the ultimate decision on whether you get a loan or not. So
That's right.
sometimes that
That's
makes
right.
me a little bit nervous.
Mhm.
Um, it is the buyer's decision. That's not, it's not my recommendation ever to do that. And so it's always them that has to make that decision to remove that finance contingency, and that just, the reason they have to do it is to show that they're committed on that offer, to
Mhm.
be able to try to make it if they can. What I don't like it is when people have not a lot of wiggle room in what their loan pre-approval is, and they're really stretching their budget to the max. And maybe
Exactly.
it's they're going with a 10% down offer, and like I'm like, dude, what happens if the appraisal comes in low? Then you're not going to make it, right?
I
And
know.
you're going to lose
I
your earnest
know.
money.
I know.
So, they're like, oh, we'll just fight it and get it back. And I'm like, no, that's not really how it works. Like you're putting your money on the line when you do stuff like that. So it makes me
I
nervous when
know.
people, are not in the ultimate financial position to be able to remove your contingency.
And
But
see, that's where we have to, as a team, work with these guys so that they really understand how serious this is,
yeah,
right? And the risks involved, because sometimes the risk is higher and sometimes it's not as high, and maybe it is smart to go in so that you have a chance at getting the house.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you there on that one. It's just, it's one of those things that I always think it's kind of interesting.
I know.
Um, So you can talk to this from the listing side too, but
Okay.
also from the buyer side. This is a kind of a general question. How do you handle disagreements between multiple buyers when they have different opinions on the type of property that they want? So like
Whew.
person A and person B, they don't agree with each other. How do you mitigate that? That's I'm sure you run into that with your listings as well, where people have different expectations of what they want in price. And same thing with the buyers. Like I noticed that sometimes it's like, wow, these people don't agree with what they want. You know, so
I've run into situations where a couple will have different opinions about how much of a fixer-upper they're okay with. For example, maybe the husband feels like he'll roll up his sleeves and he's okay with doing some work, and the wife is like, look, I've got a toddler. I need a kitchen that's ready to go, and so she's not as comfortable dealing with a fixer-upper. I don't know. Sometimes it's the reverse. Um, I think if that's the case, I'm always very collaborative when I work with my clients, when I work
Hmm.
with my buyers, and I'm asking them to come forward with the houses they want to see. And so oftentimes they will have discussed it and then they're texting me, hey, let's go see this one, and this one.
Yeah.
And I already know that they're kind of on the same page for it. And then I get a feeling watching the body language and the response I see when they're walking through the house, whether it's a fit or not, or what the comfort level is with it. And
Yep.
again, it's just asking questions and seeing who feels, strongly about the house and not. And usually they're not going to make an offer if they're not on the same page.
Yeah.
That can be tricky, I suppose, if you're showing them house after house and none of them are fitting for one reason or another. It hasn't happened to me too much, but one agent actually I was chatting with the other day, and he said that he will give them a homework assignment after the first kind of consultation, and he'll say, "I want you guys tonight to go home and each of you write a list of the top three must have separately. Go to a different room, get a piece of paper, write your top three must haves, and then your top 10 nice to haves.
Ooh, I like
And
that.
then share with each other, like, what are those priority lists? And then put a combined list together based on these, and then come back to me and let me know what the combined list is." Uh, That's kind
That's
of
a
ingenious,
that's a great idea.
right?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna try that.
It's like interrogating somebody. It reminds me of interrogating somebody in, when you watch the shows on TV and they're
I
talking about
know.
like,
Go into
they're
separate
putting people in
rooms.
separate
I know.
rooms. Oh, I love it. All right, last question here.
Okay.
This is a good one. You can speak to this from both perspectives too. What are some unique resources or tools you utilize to identify off-market or hidden gem properties for your clients?
Ooh, there's a few interesting ones. So first of all, we get notification of coming soon properties through the MLS now. So it's not like a secret
Interesting.
tool. It's out there for all agents to see because the MLS in our area has come up with two new statuses. One of them is members only show, which means that it's not viewed on Zillow or Redfin or any of these consumer facing portals.
Okay.
It's only viewed by agents, and so we can see that it's coming soon. And if it says show, it means you can show it. If it's a members only no show, it's more of a notification, like a heads up. This one's going to be coming, but we're not ready to have anyone over yet. But at least you can let your clients know that it's going to be available soon, and you can start asking additional questions of that agent because their contact information is there, and some additional notes about maybe timing is
Okay.
there. So that's one way. Another way is through each agent's individual brokerage probably has some internal coming soon. So I work at Compass. So we have our Compass exclusives and we can see those. They might not be on the MLS as a members only yet. So this is a little bit more exclusive list. And it's something where we can start early networking with our fellow agents to see if there's any off market opportunities or if it's more of like a, hey, FYI, I'm giving you heads up notice, that I have this in my pipeline coming up.
Yeah, those are great. And one of the things that I would add too, and this is really, really important for anybody that's listening out there, is to make sure that you're working with a professional realtor. And the reason I say that is that professional realtors are very well connected in their community. They have a reputation that precedes them.
Mhm.
Kirsten, I know, has a reputation amongst all the other agents that she works with in the area of being trustworthy and honest and somebody that you could trust and doing that. So networking for your agent is super important as well.
Mhm.
And a lot of
Mhm.
times, I go to these broker tours often, and people will mention properties that are not listed on anything. They're not listed on even the company website, but they maybe have a listing coming up, or you do this. So that's a good way to figure out if there's other opportunities out there for those buyers, especially if they're well connected and somebody that's
Completely. Yes. Yes.
high end in the industry. So,
Yep.
well, great. Well, what is there anything else that we missed that you want to mention today, Kirsten?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me here, and it's been really fun. It's always fun to talk and talk shop with you. So,
Well,
uh,
thanks.
yeah, no, this was great, and I wish you all the best with this podcast. I think it's a great thing to do, a really good service for people. And I think I'm really looking forward to hearing what all the other agents that you interview have to say, and getting cool tips and tricks from their perspective. So
Well, thank you. Well,
good job.
if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that? What's the best way to do that?
So the best way to do that is by sending me an email, and that is to my first and last name, which you can see, I think, right there in the bottom of my square, Kirsten.Reilly@compass.com, or you can just Google my name and find me, because I have my Google business page and my reviews and my links to my websites and all of that stuff set up there.
Perfect. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube or some clips, I will definitely put your contact information down
Oh,
below,
thank
so
you.
if people have
Yeah.
questions, they can reach out to you. And if you're listening online to the podcast on different platforms, I'll try to put that link in the description too, so you have Kirsten's contact information if you need to reach out to her. So, with that, thanks so much, everybody out there, for joining. My name is Jeff Trevarthen. I am a loan officer, and I do mortgage loans for a living as well. I appreciate everyone listening. If you could do us a huge favor, if you're watching this and you have some comments, I'd love to have you comment on our podcast and give us some ideas about what we could do better. Or if you have any questions about any of the things we talked about today, happy to have you interact with us and chat with us about more of that. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.